So out in the shop this morning, going to slap some more trailing arm protection on the 2022. I've got some Factory UTV skid guards on it, basically, that fully encapsulate the trailing arm. So rock blocks, they were doing plenty, but I'm just pretty particular, especially with this brighter color, and just coming from my 2020, that was the Manta Green, and just how much they show the damages back there. And again, I just really want to protect the machine. I'm somewhat particular. I get it's an off-road machine. I've had several. It's going to get scratched up. It's going to get tore up. It's going to get dented. Things are going to break. It is what it is. But I do want to keep it as nice as I can. It's my machine. Me and the bank are awful proud of it. So these carnivores, just a little bit more aggressive, a little wider. They're slinging crap back that I used to not get. And all you hear is just rocks pinging off the back of this sucker. So we're going to slap those guards on and get just a little bit more protection. Probably got to modify them to fit the rock blocks, which is kind of be overkill at this point. I could take the rock blocks off and not use them anymore, but I'm just going to slap them on there, just keep them on there, and go from there. All right, got her jacked up. We're going to have to pull the wheel off one side at a time, but here is the guards. Pretty freaking beefy, pretty dang thick, as you can see. Profile of my finger versus the thickness of this guy here. Obviously it goes from the pivot point of the trailing arm all the way back to where it curves, and you see where the knuckle and all the rear components for the running gear attach. So it's basically going to cover every bit all the way up. I'm actually going to have to relocate the brake lines a little bit higher up as well to accommodate it. Obviously this guy's going to have to take this off, and I'm probably going to mark them and notch them. Again, overkill, I know, but it gives a little bit more for the spring and stuff. You've got this guard, but this sucker doesn't really do crap. And as you can see, she's taking some bites, but this is what I'm talking about. Not a big deal. Again, it's an off-road machine, but I like to keep my stuff pretty high and tight, pretty clean, protected. My 2022 was just beaten to death underneath here that you don't see. Rusted, scratched up, no paint underneath it. Manta green, and it just had, 20 times the amount of nicks in the front of it than it did behind it. Of course, it had rock blocks too, but obviously you've got all this to protect. So I'm getting them on there, and we'll see how the install goes. It's going to be a little tedious having to notch them, but we'll make that decision. Who knows if it's a pain in the butt, then we probably just will take this off altogether if it cannot accommodate the bracket anymore, and then we'll just put those up for sale, get them gone, and just run these cats and be protected. But obviously it's going to get all the way down into the curve of that trailing arm, so some pretty good protection. All right, so took some trial and error, but pretty much got her mocked up and on there. So pretty easy. In reality, just a little tedious because I wanted to notch this out because I want to be able to take this bracket off in case it gets mangled or, fit these. So obviously had to notch it a little bit and be able to get to that screw. It wouldn't accommodate fitting on there as tight as it's got to. Pretty freaking tight tolerances. You have to have a C-clamp to compress this sucker to get it in there. But it closes up that hole right here in the trailing arm where you just catch a bunch of crap. And then the brake lines, you got to relocate them to the hardware. So here, it said to drill this one out, but I'm thinking I'm just going to put it back because it's still clear of that guard. And that's it. But as you can see, all the way up to the pivot point and then all the way under. So if you're hitting rocks, this sucker's going to take all the punishment you could probably throw at it, honestly, and be just fine. So fits what I wanted. Looks pretty good all in all. fits super tight. That's probably the most tedious part, getting it to fit. Obviously, if you don't have this crap in the way, it's definitely not that big a deal. A couple C-clamps and then hammer it on there. So I'd imagine this thing otherwise would only take somebody probably freaking 15 minutes to put on if there wasn't rock blocks back here. But like I said, I still want a little bit of added protection for up here in the spring and just more junk that gets thrown back in here. So overkill, abso-freaking-lutely, but that's fine with me. So one issue I just noticed, and I don't know if this is my fault or they just don't make them yet, but Smart Shock's sensor where the bracket is, it is actually pinning it into place. So we're gonna have to notch it to accommodate full rotation, you know, pivoting of that sensor that actually gives the feedback to this Smart Shock system, and obviously adjusts it on the fly. So that's our eyes part of it. We're just gonna get it notched out, just mark this whole bracket, notch the whole thing out on each side, and slap her back on there. All right, got her notched out. That way this guy can do what it needs to do and pivot. Obviously, when the trailing arm and the springs compress, obviously this guy pivots up here and obviously down. So that's what that action needed to happen. I just didn't want any undue pressure right here. That probably would have been okay, but obviously we've got brake lines here, we've got this here. Just wanted it to as right as I could get it. Well, I got it wrapped up in true fashion for me and for us here at Discover Power Sports. We like to make a quick job turn into a 2 to 3 times the normal install amount. So obviously got them both on, a lot of protection, just like I wanted. Obviously with it jacked up, you can see the backside. Same thing over here. Got them notched for the rock blocks, which again, it's way overkill, but that's what I wanted to do on this sucker. So I'm digging them. I think they'll work out. You know, if any of you guys will rock crawl or something like that, I mean, these are pretty stout, so I think everybody's running some type of skid plates and sliders and things like that. But got her done. All I gotta do is torque the wheels, grease everything one more time, clean all that up, set my tire pressures, and other than that, they'll be pretty much ready to rip. So getting ready to head to some cooler weather in Arkansas. All right, just giving her one more fire up, just topped her off. Checking everything, electronics and everything. Had to run it a little bit so I could make sure the brake lines were unimpeded and I didn't jack anything up on those when I kind of rerouted them. So all that's working. Cleaned out the rear toolbox from all the junk, cleaned out the console and everything. So man, I love those freaking lights. That's the hazard function on the Corbin setup, and those are the Corbin ghost lights, chasers. So they look slick. So she's pretty much dialed in and ready to rock and roll. So we're gonna get the KRX and get it ready to rock and roll. Obviously Bryce's machine, he's got it with him now. I'm sure he was doing some cruising and gassing her up, making sure it's ready for the rip, because he did adjust the springs on it as well. So other than that, we're good. We got all our gear, tire patches for Bryce, compressor just in case, because we're going to be doing some trail riding. Hopefully put some miles on these suckers. Pretty pumped.